And welcome everybody to a fantastic day we're having here. It's Monday, the day after the most incredible day ever in Formula One history. The greatest driver of all time and ever will be, and probably better than Jesus if Jesus drove a Formula One car, is 7 times, count them, 7 times, 7 times world champion, Lewis, the brilliantly great, fantastically British, awesomely fantastic driver, Hamilton. That's obviously not his full name. His full name is a lot longer than that. But obviously, I couldn't be overthrown. I could see by Fabio's reaction to what I'm saying that he is also incredibly awestruck by the awesomeness of what is awesomely the person that is the awesome Lewis, the fantastic, awesome driver of all time, Hamilton. And that little chuckle doesn't give anything away. Needless to say, this hangout, we're going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton, 7 times world champion, and that won't be the last time you'll hear me say that, I can assure you. So anyway, moving on, I'm going to just do a quick race recap. We all know what this is going to be about, me banging on about how brilliant Lewis Hamilton is. Anyway, so just a quick race cap to start with. I'll say hello to Fabio first. Hello, ciao, Fabio.
Hey, hello.
Thank you very much. Thank you. He is there. If you wouldn't mind interacting with anybody that comes into side chat, because I'm only going to tell them how brilliant Lewis Hamilton is, so that'll be boring. However,
Yeah.
onwards with the race recap. It was, of course, it was Turkey. It was Turkey 2020, an old Grand Prix we haven't seen for some time. Just to say that the pole position was taken by an unlikely Stroll, who's going to get the name. I think I'm going to start calling him this. This might be premature, but I think I'm going to start calling him Stroll the Pole. Not because he's Polish, because he's not, but because he was on pole position for Turkey 2020. That's, by the way, 2020 Turkey. That's the race that Lewis Hamilton became 7 times world champion. But anyway, Stroll got pole position, which was fantastic. Well deserved. It was a very odd weekend in all. The conditions were very difficult. Basically, I don't know what they were thinking. They seemed like they didn't rubber the track in at all. It seemed like there was no grip whatsoever. It rained before qualifying, which just meant the cars were all over the place. It rained during qualifying, which meant the cars were even more over the place. It seemed like even in dry conditions with hardly any water on the track, they needed full wets just to get heat into the tyres. So that's how difficult the surface was. I think it would have been brilliant if we had a dry weekend, of course, because that way Lewis Hamilton would have had an easy run to it. But as it is, he was in 6th place on the grid after qualifying, which was an unusual showing. Was he slow? Was he off? Was he ill? We didn't know. He was in 6th, but that wasn't going to stop him, as we'll find out. Anyway, into the first corner, Stroll got a lightning start, drove away from the pack, which was unexpected. Max Verstappen got a really dodgy start. I don't know what happened to him. He just seemed to bog down on the grid, maybe missed a gear, the revs were too low, that kind of thing. He just went backwards like a stone, really, like a stone falling to the bottom of a pond. It was unbelievable. The conditions were so difficult. Anyway, Lewis got away well, up from 6th into, I think, 3rd place, or about 3rd place, I think. And basically, it was quite a weird first corner because the two pink Mercedes went in 1-2, came out 1-2. But Lewis took a dive down Ricciardo. Ricciardo's inside. And I think just by reaction, Ricciardo just jinked his steering wheel to avoid contact with Hamilton. But of course, that put him in contact with his own teammate. So I don't know what was going on there. That was a little strange for me. Ricardo just almost deliberately taking his teammate out there, and his teammate Ocon then went and hit Bottas, Jeeves, I was going to say, but Bottas, and took him out down to the back of the grid. So all in all, the championship was pretty much won and dusted by corner one, by Lewis having a brilliant start and Bottas being just unfortunately collected on the outside. Things just went from bad to worse. Anybody that couldn't keep heat in the tyres were absolutely doomed in this race. And if you pitted at the wrong time and couldn't get that heat back in the tyres, yeah, it was over for you, really. You would drop like a stone. And that was to be the story. At one point or another, a lot of drivers suffered with cold tyres and started dropping back. And if they couldn't push to get the heat back in the tyres, they were pretty much doomed. The only alternative, or the only exception to that, of course, was the Racing Point, which works its tyres extremely hard and therefore was able to keep heat in the tyres, but unfortunately was unable to keep the tyres together long enough in the wet conditions to keep them going. So they also then suffered. It was a fantastic drive by Stroll. He was extremely unlucky, I felt, halfway through the race when the team called him in for a new set of inters. But there you go. He couldn't get the temperatures back in them. So he really suffered. Anyway, Lewis made a mistake into turn 4, allowing Vettel by, and also Albon, I think. He just couldn't get his heat into the tyres to start with. But typical Lewis, kept it on the track, kept the brilliance going. And although he was overtaken by both Red Bulls, he managed to eventually get temperature back into his tyres and then re-overtake all of those cars. By lap 2, it was a very strange order. The Red Bulls looked like they really had it going on. Albon overtaking just about everybody, including Vettel, for 4th place, and dragging Lewis along with him. Again, this was the pattern. If you were out there and you managed to stay on the track, you could keep heat in your tyres, and therefore no problems. You were able to keep a decent speed up. But if you spun off, like Verstappen did, say on lap 18, while trying to overtake Perez, that then decreased the temperature in your tyres, and you couldn't get back up again. You couldn't get them back again. It seemed. Unfortunately, Verstappen had a lot of spins during this race, and in that one spin, he got overtaken by a lot of cars, including Sebastian Vettel and Lewis, the 7 times world champion, Lewis Hamilton. At the same time, other drivers was really struggling. Those that had spun off at all just lost temperature so quickly, and they just kept spinning, which meant they kept losing temperature, which meant they kept spinning, etc. This happened to Bottas several times. A few notable drives I felt was Lando, who, although he was really struggling with his car, was actually giving it as much as he possibly could. And he had some really good overtakes in what were extremely challenging conditions for any driver. I thought Verstappen drove amazingly well, considering he was under pressure, and he was making mistakes every now and again, of course. But then most drivers made mistakes if they started pushing too hard, and it was only those drivers that didn't have to push that were really mistake-free. And of course, with Bottas spinning to the back of the pack early on, Lewis Hamilton didn't have to push. He was fairly safe for his championship. Needless to say, eventually the mistakes were made again. Verstappen span, Albon span, and of course this basically just handed the race to the Mercedes. There was going to be no challenges. Eventually, then the pink Mercedes had to come in the pits, which meant Hamilton then moved up. Stroll came in the pits, of course, changed his tyres to intermediates, but then couldn't get temperature in them again. So he just dropped back like a stone. That's where I felt he was unlucky. It was a bad race call, considering Perez didn't stop for tyres. Eventually, Hamilton caught up with Perez, whose tyres by this time were running out, while still on a very slippery surface. Hamilton had managed to keep his tyres in somewhat, and it was a pretty easy overtake using DRS for some reason. DRS. Could you write that down as well? DRS. What the fuck? Why was that enabled? Yeah, just goes to show you it's Formula One in the modern era. Doesn't give any respect to the rules that we used to have in the old days. Anyway, needless to say, Lance Stroll then had a fight back. He did, of course, get his tyres up to temperature, and he then tried to fight back against various people. He actually made it back up to, I think, 6th place before Leclerc actually made a mistake into the last corner and gave the position away, unfortunately, from 3rd to 5th, allowing Perez and Vettel to. I think he was challenging Perez into the last but one corner, and that he made a slight mistake, and that allowed Sebastian Vettel to get past to give the podium as Hamilton, 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton, pole position, the first place in the race, which is just a brilliant drive. On to Perez in 2nd, Leclerc 4th, Leclerc 3rd, Vettel 4th, and I think then maybe Sainz and Verstappen. No, the other way around. Beg your pardon. Yeah, Vettel 3rd, of course, because he got past at the end. Leclerc 4th, and then let me just check. Yeah, Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc, Sainz, and Verstappen. Albon, Norris, who got fastest lap on the last lap, I think, and then Stroll, creditable 9th, considering he was shafted with strategy, and Ricciardo, who just drove a solid race but just couldn't do anything with it. I think the Renault just doesn't have the right chassis at all, but hopefully they'll sort that out for next year. So that was the race. Lewis Hamilton came home to win his 7th world title in stunning style in what was really difficult conditions, to show that he is a master still and is nowhere near retiring, thank goodness. So I think we can expect more from him in the future in the way of championships. At least that's my hope. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. He didn't panic when he got off to when he was down on the grid after qualifying. He just knew he could bring it back, and he had ultimate faith in not just the Lord, but also Toto and and Niki Lauda, presumably. So a fantastic drive. I'm very pleased that he's got his 7th world title. A creditable drive for Perez, who under really difficult conditions really managed extremely well. And maybe I'm changing my mind slightly for the replacement for Albon now, from Hulkenberg to Perez, because if he comes with money and he can do stuff like that in the wet under really tricky conditions, who knows, he might be the man for the job. Sainz, again, I would say a brilliant drive by Sainz with what was a more difficult car than anybody else in the top 5, and he brought that home in a real way. So if that doesn't bode well for Ferrari next year, I don't know what will. And just to finish off, the Red Bulls, who looked to have the fastest car. I've got to say, they looked to have the fastest car, but under such tricky conditions, even a driver of Verstappen's quality couldn't help but have a few accidents. And there you go. I would say that was the race. I'm very pleased. It was exciting. Okay, now on to the interesting commentary from Fabio. Ciao, Fabio.
Hey, so yeah, it was a very thrilling race. It was really good. I mean, I told you before we began. Apparently Bernie Eccleston at a point when he said, in order to make the races more interesting, you should flood the tracks with water and just leave it there. So there were a couple of things. You mentioned the track. The track was the conditions of the track were appallingly bad, and there is a the issue with the track was that apparently the week before the race, they called a specialized company. That the track on the tarmac on the track is not the same one as the one on the road. It's very different. It's more abrasive. It's so they called a specialized company, and that company told the guys in the circuit, listen, this tarmac is at the end of the life cycle, but it's good, so just don't do nothing, and you just resurface after the race. And apparently, well, the Turkish, being Turkish, said, yeah, we do whatever the fuck we want. So, and this is a funny thing, they called the company which was applying tarmac on a nearby highway. I shit you not. So they called that company and say, well, do you want to resurface the track? They say, yeah, fuck it. We already have the tarmac. We know how to do it. So the track was resurfaced by a company which normally makes highways. That was apparently the reason why the track was in such a bad condition. And it wasn't bad only in the rain. It was bad on dry conditions too. They sent cars Saturday night on the track, normal cars riding on the track, to put some rubber on it, hoping to improve the conditions, which, of course it didn't happen. So that was incredible. I've never seen in all my years a track which doesn't dry up when it starts raining. Usually every circuit, if it stops raining, I don't know, what would you say? After 20 laps?
Not even that.
Would you agree?
Not even that.
Yeah, I'm being generous.
It depends. There's a few corners where maybe rainwater comes across the track which don't dry out. But generally, 5 to 10 laps after raining.
I would say 20. You have at least a lane which is bone dry. And that never happened, and it never rained during the race. So I was just like, what the fuck is going on? It was incredible. So it was like it was a race like in the good old times, where there was basically you have less mechanical grip. So aero doesn't really get into the equation because the speeds are way lower, and they run mostly on intermediate tires, which they're really funny because they start really good usually, then they have a drop, and then they become sleek again, so they have a increased performances. So it was really weird, but it was really like 20 years ago, watching a race from 20 years ago. That was weird. And so you failed to mention I think the. So I don't agree. You said Verstappen made a good race. I was really disappointed with Verstappen, to be totally fair with you. I think that we saw Verstappen like 2 or 3 years ago, when everybody was saying, the moment he chills down, he's a really fast driver, and blah 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 blah. And apparently he broke down. In those conditions, he was driving so much over the car, but too much. And it's not only a problem of riding too much. He wasn't riding according to the conditions. Something like, if you watch the difference between him and Vettel, for example, the way they were driving was totally different. Verstappen was trying to accelerate too much. He spun, I think, a couple of times. One was really, was really good to see. I think he was doing 270 an hour. He just, spun on the straight. That was good to watch. But absolutely. But I was quite disappointed with Verstappen. I hope that it was a little bit more mature by now, but I don't know.
The reason I said what I said was because of the car characteristics. That Red Bull was never going to be anything but Mr. Spinny McSpinny Span. And it doesn't matter who we would have put in that car. I don't think anybody would have not spun it.
Well,
And the reason I said he drove well is because he only spun it a couple of times, and even then, under conditions which the first spin, I mean, he was literally, maybe 10% throttle, and it spun the rear end spun.
well,
Right?
yeah. See, but
I mean, wow. Okay, so you can't put any less throttle in. So anybody would have spun there. And the second one, as you say, he was doing like 130 mile an hour spin behind somebody when he got offline, and then okay, there you go. It's going to
no, I
happen.
mean,
I'm saying it because
yeah.
that particular car has so much front end downforce, right? They can't put enough downforce on the rear, and that was the problem. They
Well,
needed to set that car up with as little downforce on the front end as possible in order to stop it spinning. But carry on, yeah.
Well, no, well, I mean, I understand what you say, but every race you race with what you get, and it is. I mean, in my opinion, it is pointless to drive over the possibilities of the car trying to achieve a result which is not there, because it was in a way better position when he spun. I think it was third, catching on Perez, and he ended up. He ended up like sixth. So I mean that is an obvious mistake for him. And again, I'm not blaming the guy per se. I'm just saying that I think that at this stage in his career, he should be a little bit more. Careful is not the right word, but it should be a little bit more, on the thing. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Those are the situations. This is the car I'm driving. How can I take the maximum result with the material that I've got?
Agreed.
So yes, so that's there is another thing, another interesting thing about the cars. So I might be wrong, but I think that they were not expecting the rain to be on Sunday, if I'm not wrong.
No, I agree.
And so I think that one of the reasons why the Racing Point had a very good performance is that they gambled and they had a particular soft setup. So they gambled for the fact that there was actually rain on Sunday, and they had a way more wet setup, compared to the other ones,
Yeah,
and that
I
would
mean, softer suspension is what you're saying.
yeah. So
I mean, there's never going to be much difference in wing levels now between dry and wet, but
yeah, but I mean, there is a big difference in setup. So I think this is partially one of the reasons why they have such a good result, both in qualifying and in the race. Where you cannot change the setup.
Although again, a bit disappointing, as I say, on Stroll's end because realistically, he could have had second place in that race.
Listen,
hadn't have messed up the strategy.
The team was really bad overall. I mean, Racing Point was, I think, one of the worst team strategy-wise that we saw on Sunday. I still cannot understand why they stopped Stroll the way they stopped, and then the Perez stuff. I mean, that was incredible. And so thinking about that, Perez got second and is already gone from the team, right? And the son of the owner of the team, which was in pole position, he ended up ninth, mostly because of mistakes that they made in the team. So what I'm trying to say is that if I were part of that team, I don't know if all my colleagues will be there next race. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, again,
the strategy was really bad. No,
well, it wasn't really bad. It was bad, and again, bad in hindsight more than anything. Of course, Leclerc had pitted due to him running out of tyres. He was the first one to make the bad strategy, right? If we're going to call it a bad strategy. I think it was a gamble, right? And that's the thing. Quite often in those conditions, I've seen in a lot of races in those conditions, that when somebody straps on a new set of inters, the inters actually do a lot better. The new inters do a lot better and can give you seconds per lap. But that just didn't happen.
Well,
And again, mainly because of the reason you pointed out earlier, which was the track was so bad, not the rain, right?
Well, okay. I mean, well, first of all, there is a big difference in pitting Leclerc when they pit him. I think it was 14th or 15th. So you place a gamble. You play something. You do something stupid in order to have a better result. But Stroll at the time was first. And Leclerc was pitted. I think there was some other guy which pitted before with intermediate, so they already have some data on how fast the intermediate were going. So I mean, I think we're trying to compare two things, here, which they're not really close. But I mean, regardless, they fucked. I think they fucked it up royally. I have no idea what the fuck they did. If you're first and second, you play conservatively and you want the other guys to race on you, not you on the other guys. And I think this is what
I totally understand. I mean, for me, the circumstance was Stroll had complained about grip and his tyres wear in the previous lap. In that previous lap, Leclerc had pitted and started putting in fastest sectors, right? So, I mean, those two things together say, yeah, it's worth a gamble. And again, they were gambling big because obviously they wanted to win the race rather than just take a high place. So right. I'm not so down on the strategy in terms of I've seen that strategy work many times in Formula One races under these conditions. The thing they didn't take into account, right, as I said, is the fact that even new tires, right, compared to new intermediates compared to old intermediates, are not going to give the lap time because of the condition of the track itself and the abrasive nature of it. You're going to get a very limited amount of time, as Leclerc showed, by only doing a few sectors the fastest, and then his time's dropping off, right? Because of the high amount of wear on the circuit itself, nothing to do with the rain.
Right. I mean, but if you're already ahead, you want to be super damn sure,
I agree. But again, these three factors coming together seem to me for them to say, right, we'll throw the dice as well, because if we get this right, the Mercedes are not going to overtake us and we will win the race. So I think they were just throwing the dice and gambling for first place versus what they probably thought if his Stroll tires hadn't have cooled off so much, a 9th place. They probably thought, well, maybe we'll get 4th or 5th place if it fucks up. But they couldn't have foreseen that the circuit was going to be that bad, although they should have done, admittedly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so it's a fuck up. I'll agree, it's a fuck up. Yeah. I just don't think it's a huge fuck up in the way of it was obvious that they shouldn't have done that. I think they were throwing the dice to gamble for a win, and that was how that went. And they obviously fucked it up because he didn't get the win. But he was never going to win if he just stayed in. If he stayed out there, I mean, that was clear. The real Mercedes would have come past, sooner or later. Anyway, I don't think that's a huge issue there. Leclerc, as I say, was the first one to make that move as far as I was concerned. And I thought, that's the perfect thing to do at that time. I mean, but again, we can level exactly the same argument. Well, Ferrari should have known that new inters don't give you that much because of how abrasive the circuit is under the water.
Okay, so the reason I said that, so let me start backwards. Ferrari did something different, and it is proven by the fact that it got 3rd and 4th, and they were actually 2nd and 4th, but Leclerc made that mistake, 2 corners at the end. But, the reason I say that about the racing point is that I think that next year, by having someone which has proven to understand how you race in different situations, and I'm talking about Vettel, would improve the team a lot,
whole team, yeah.
So right now, I think that Racing Point, and and this is not the first time this year that they made some really weird strategy calls and stuff like that. And I think that the fact that they're going to have someone which, again, I mean, I agree with what Leclerc said. He was happy about. He was pissed at himself, first of all, but it was generally, I think, he was genuinely happy about Sebastian, and he said, well, he deserves something this year because he's been quite unlucky this year, and I think that having a driver like Sebastian next year in Racing Point would be a massive advantage. In that area. So I'm glad.
Agree more. Yeah. Well, in every area. In car setup, it's going to be a massive advantage. In car development, it's going to be a massive advantage.
Yeah.
There's no downsides to them getting Vettel, as far as I can see. And I think it's a bit. I think realistically, I think. Well, again, he couldn't go back to Red Bull. Right, could he? Because of the way Max likes a nose-heavy car. But it showed today, or yesterday, it showed what a disadvantage that can be. Right, because it's, as far as I can see, it's the nose-heavy car that stopped them getting a first and second place. Right, in those conditions, they needed the old Damon Hill approach, right?
Well, no, I understand. This is where I think this is where our opinions diverge. Because you're right. You have absolutely a very good point. The way that the car is built, it's more problematic. But this is where my critique of Max Verstappen chimes in. Even with that car, he was in such a good position, but he wanted more, not realizing that, listen, man, this is the best you can do with the car that you have in those situations. You got to chill the fuck up. And I mean, I could get it from someone like, I don't know, I mean, I'd say Lando Norris, just because, he's younger than Max Verstappen, or, Kvyat, for example, some other people. I could get from that person's. I am starting to be a little bit more demanding from Max Verstappen on that area, because that's the area that is usually lacking, the being a little bit more chilled and aiming for the result rather than for the performance. And, this Sunday, he just wasn't there. It was Max Verstappen of 3 or 4 years ago. Beautiful to watch, amazing to see, but not the kind of guy you want in the team. You want the kind of guy which brings, points. So that I think was a little bit meh, So
okay, that's good. I just want to say a quick hello to Spooky Bedhair out there. Hello, Spooky. Thank you once again for joining us. We do appreciate it. Yeah. And just moving on, I don't know if you saw the race, Spooky, but it was well worth it. If you can get a chance to rewatch it at some point, please do. I think it's a good one. Had lots of excitement in it, as I said. But you can watch the beginning of the podcast again for the roundup, which was fantastic. I mean, my intro of roundup are legendary. Legendary as 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton. Carry on.
It was a very long race. I mean, I remember watching it and saying, well, I mean, fuck it. It's only been 20 laps. It looked like it was going forever. But it was brilliant. It was a brilliant race.
Yeah, again, I'm disappointed because I really wanted a dry turkey because that circuit is a great circuit and it would have given us a good race regardless. All right. To be honest, I think. If not a better race, because Verstappen looked to be really, really fast. And I think he would have been a match for the Mercedes. So we might have actually seen Lewis having a challenger rather than just doing his usual. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can take care of this. Yeah. But anyway, he deserved the win. There's no doubt about it. He drove the best of everybody, almost perfect.
He totally deserved the win, even if... especially if you see what the fuck Bottas did with the same car, which was wow. And I mean, he also deserved the win. I mean, he rode a race, like Michael Schumacher used to race, which I think it's a very good compliment. And also the fact that he I mean, he complained just a little bit, not too much, which was good.
Yeah,
I mean,
very true, very true.
he whinged a little bit at the
And
end because fuck it, yeah, I got to
sure,
do that.
and as people as Spokey there is pointing out, he cried again at the end. Oh, it was lovely. It
Yeah,
was lovely, and
yeah.
I'm so happy for him because he expresses himself. It just shows you what an emotional man inside he really is, and what a world class champion we have.
Right.
7 times over, I should add. And I never heard Schumacher. Oh, I did hear Schumacher crying actually. So yeah, okay. Anyway, forget about that.
Well,
Uh,
not for the reasons that Lewis
no,
Hamilton
no,
cries
no,
every
mainly,
fucking time. If
no, no,
it's
main.
not, if it's
That's
not the race, it's the tires, it's the fucking dog, it's the vegetarianism. So
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah, but
Christ.
no, no. I mean, fair enough. Schumacher cried when he thought his reputation was down the whole shitter because
Right.
he'd run Damon Hill off, and oh no, it wasn't Damon Hill. It was Jack Villeneuve. It's the one that he cried on, and then he cried at Silverstone when he broke his leg as well because he knew
Yeah.
he'd given away another championship. But there you go.
Also because I think it was quite painful. So I will give him that.
Oh fuck that! No.
Yeah. Usually when you break a leg, it's kind of painful, but
Yeah, not Michael Schumacher. No, no, no.
yeah.
Anyway, I couldn't have happened to a nicer person. That's all I'm saying. But nonetheless, yeah, as we're saying, it was a fantastic race. He was very emotional. He thanked his team, and oddly, and this is what I found really odd, was Toto was just talking bullshit on the radio at the end. Now, did you get any of that?
I mean,
He
listen.
said, Lewis, congratulations on your 7th title. I couldn't have done it any better.
Yeah.
No, of course you couldn't, Toto. That's why
Of course you couldn't. Yeah.
That's why you're the dick in the pits, right? That owns everything. It's just Mr. Rich Boy. And Lewis is the one, the very talented, greatest racing driver of all time, 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton, is the one out there doing it. And
Listen,
then not only that, he then tried to realise he said something stupid, so he then tried to sort of say something else, which was something like I can't even remember what he said now. Just fill in for me while I find it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's Total Wolf, right? I mean, it is the guy which took it like a champion because he wanted to be the head of the FIA, and people told him to go fuck himself, and he took it like a champion. So it's Total Wolf. I mean, would I love to work for the guy? Maybe if I have 2 or 3 people behind me and the guy, So I would love to be in the same team as Total Wolf, but not directly working under Total Wolf. Yeah, so that's my approach to Toto, which is good, but jeez, I think it's. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a mysterious person.
Okay, so that after that first message, Toto then said, "Fantastic drive with the slicks."
Yeah.
No, there were no fucking slicks. I mean, we know what he meant is the tyres that were so worn down that they were virtually slick, right? And that is another similarity with Schumacher, right? Because back in the day, that was one of the main tactics, was to wear the groove tyres down until they were just slicks, and then you got extra grip. And they would do the same thing with the intermediates. So Michael won a hell of a lot of races by doing that.
Oh, right.
Brilliantly as well. I remember Portugal, I think it was. Was it Portugal? Yeah, Portugal, where he came from virtually the back to win the race by a lap.
Villeneuve was another kind of guy which used to do the same thing. It was really brilliant with that.
Yeah. So that was the strange thing. Fantastic. It was really awesome to be a witness of that. Very German. I love him. I love Toto. He's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was another strange thing going on. The radio messages were all a bit weird. And everybody was a bit off their game. I mean, it just goes to show how difficult that race must have been for the drivers, because you had Leclerc at the end making a very small mistake, really. Yeah. And fairly inconsequential. I would have thought in his mind it should have been, because okay, he's not on the podium, but then he's going to be a race winner. He's going to be a world champion. I don't know why he's concerned about not getting a third place right now,
Well,
especially when your teammate gets it. So,
well, no,
all right.
I mean, it was really paced. I mean, keep in mind that when he made a mistake, he was second because he already overtook Perez. So
Well, yeah.
no, he
But
was ahead of Perez.
But he made the mistake overtaking Perez, right? So maybe he
No. I think that he overtook Perez first, and
Yeah.
then he made the mistake. But it was the corner after that. He just
Right.
blocked the tires. And I mean, I think that speaks volumes of the guy. He was just so he understood that was a chance because of the conditions, because of the car that they have. It was a really good chance. That was, I mean, the same way that we said that Vettel drove a fantastic race given the material that he had. I mean, he was doing even better, and he lost 2 positions. And that, I think, in 2 corners you can actually see what it means to be an experienced driver and somebody which is fast, that eventually, I mean, it will get some experience.
Yeah,
Because,
I would just slightly disagree. I think that was the corner that he was actually overtaking Perez in. He got down the inside, and then because he was on the inside, presumably that was slightly wetter, made the mistake there. And incidentally, that is exactly the same mistake Lewis had made earlier in the race on lap 1, when Lewis had got down the inside of that corner and had to go wide. So, no, I think I slightly disagree. I think, he was going for second place. Yeah, he'd pulled past Perez, but he still had to get the job done in the braking area. And again, he could have broken earlier and still overtaken Perez, right? But of course, it's a racing driver instinct there. And as you say, he's not the most experienced. Lewis had made that mistake earlier in the race and suffered exactly the same way. So I think he was being a little hard on himself, really. And this is something that's going to annoy me as much as Lewis's whinging annoys you. I think in future years, I'm going to be just as annoyed that every time he turns the wheel the wrong way slightly, or he locks a wheel up and does something which loses him anything, he's going to be, oh my God, it's the end of the world.
Well, it was pissed because he lost 2 positions. I mean, and he missed the podium.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can get that. I can get somebody being pissed.
Sure, but he was going full second place. That was the point.
Well, I mean, but he got 4th
for second place, right? So, and he only lost 1 position. And
no, he lost 2 positions.
No,
he got 4th.
No. He had overtaken Perez, down the straight, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he still had to get the job done into the braking area on the inside of the corner.
Well, yeah, but he was second at the time.
Sure.
And from second, it become the worst position ever, which is 4th, because you're literally at the first of the losers. So
although for someone like Lewis, second is the first of the losers. But anyway, that's another point. No, I'm just saying that because he had only just overtaken Perez going down the straight, they were still alongside each other, so the job wasn't done. He wasn't in second place, comfortable. That's it.
Well, okay.
On the race. Hang on. He wasn't in second place, comfortable on the racing line. Just got to bring it home. No, he still had some work to do to get that place secured. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And in trying to do that, he made a mistake. Okay, because he was down the inside. If he'd been on the racing line, that wouldn't have been a mistake, would it? But he couldn't be because Perez was there.
He has been chasing Perez for the most part of 15 laps.
Sure.
Gaining 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds on Perez. Then Perez had a little bit, of resurgence at the times. So he has been literally chasing the guy for 15 laps.
Yeah.
He got the guy, he got second, and he made 1 mistake. I can totally understand the guy being pissed. It's not that he was, it's been in the same situation forever, and he made that mistake. He drove like a dog to get in that position. He snatched that position, and then he made one mistake. I think it was,
Yeah, yeah,
more than justified. He made super pissed. But you were talking about the radio. There was another funny radio thing which happened. That was Binotto, which Mattia Binotto, which wasn't at the track.
yeah.
Because apparently he's been invited not to be at the track anymore. That he got in touch with Leclerc from Maranello, from the remote, and that was the guy which actually started the whole, yeah, I've been an asshole, all the fuck, because he said, well, Leclerc, well, Charles, good job, you got fourth. And this is where Leclerc, broke off, because, again, it's not that Leclerc, opened the radio and started complaining. He hear on the radio somebody tell him, oh yeah, you made a good job, you got fourth. And they say, you know what? Fuck it,
Yeah,
so,
yeah. He said it's worse than Baku, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Listen,
That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't make any sense at all.
right, shut the fuck up. You can understand that the guy is pissed. Don't tell him he made a good job,
Of course, yeah.
And this is where, where everything broke loose. And I found it super funny that the guy wasn't in the track. He was in Italy. They opened the radio just for him. And the thing, it just says one thing. And he basically told himself to fuck off and say, shut the fuck up.
Again, I think this is a lot of Charles's problem, and it's going to be a problem in the future for Ferrari. Not necessarily so much if they produce a winning car, but if they have this same problem with the car again, that they can't challenge Mercedes next year, this is going to be a disaster, another disaster year for Charles, and that's the problem for me. And because they're not going to let Sainz get past. They're not going to do anything to help Sainz. All right, Sainz is just going to have to take the rough end. Now, I'm sure he's signed up and he's prepared to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Just like Massa and Barrichello.
Yeah.
That's the job at Ferrari. You're second driver. And you better be prepared to be a second driver because they don't tolerate the shit, right? Yeah. But the problem here is that Charles is going to that was a good result for Ferrari yesterday.
It was a good result. It wasn't a good result for Leclerc.
But let's just take that out. Let's just look at it from Ferrari point of view, okay? And that's what I'm saying. Yes, he made a mistake, but it was the best result of the year for Ferrari. Both drivers should be congratulated, right? As far as I can see, on doing a good job for getting the best result for Ferrari that they possibly could.
Listen, do not congratulate the guy in that moment.
I understand.
That is the problem.
I understand, because it just shows that he's not such a team player, right? That's what I'm pointing out. This is Leclerc going, I know Ferrari did a great job. I know Sebastian deserves it, but not really. I know I've got to say the political right stuff, but I'm going to have a fucking go and compare it to Baku,
It's not a problem.
Baku was a lot worse. Baku was a straight driver error. This was a tricky job where everybody else had been spinning. Lewis Hamilton had made the same mistake at that corner, right? No, this is not compared to Baku. I'm sorry.
It's not a problem of a team player.
That's how I see it.
Well, no, I understand. I'm saying, but my opinion is that you as you said, you take one driver that he has to be the second. You establish things from the beginning. You make pre-race brief, and you lay down everything which can happen after the race. Especially, after immediately after the race, you just shut the fuck up. Because those guys are pumped, really pumped, and to me it was astonishing to hear a team manager or whatever talk to a guy in that situation. Not because it is wrong, Don't get me wrong. It's because you don't do that in those situations. Mm-hmm. I've had drivers coming in the pit, after the race. and where nobody, and I mean literally nobody, talked to them for the good part of a quarter of an hour. Because you know that they're not in the right set of mind. The adrenaline is all over the place. They're super pumped. I mean, if you remember last year, some of Sebastian's reactions that he had, when he switched, the posts when he get to the end. This is not a normal behavior from Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
But they do that after the race. I mean, you remember Michael Schumacher wanted to punch what was that, Coulthard in the face?
Yeah.
And I mean,
He did.
And I mean, he kind of had some reasons for that, but that's not a behavior that you see everybody doing. That it's because he gets to the pit, he jumps off. I want to punch the guy in the face. Your brain is not exactly in the same mood. So,
Belgium. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So to me, it was a very poor performance from the guys in Ferrari. Not because they did the wrong thing. It's because they should understand that there are some things that you can do, and some things that you better do. There is a time and place, for stuff. That's all I'm saying. But
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying, and
But it was great to listen to him, especially when after they told him it was still Binotto which told him, well, okay, don't worry, just bring the car back, and Leclerc, which was still fuming, he said, yeah, of course I'm gonna bring the car back after the flag is done, I can do that.
Yeah. Interesting to see. And Binotto, of course, is on his way out, no doubt. Yeah, is that right? Who's his replacement?
I think so Binotto is a funny cat, because as a technician is not bad. So I think that my impression is that they will relocate him, back in Maranello, to deal with the technical stuff, and getting the fuck away from the track where it's not suited. Yeah. And we've been saying that for 2 years now. That was it's a bad choice.
You have, yeah. I mean, even just when you heard the name as an appointee, you went, "Oh, this is gone."
This is no. This is gonna end bad, really bad. Yeah. And I'm sorry for the guy, but yeah. And apparently he's not even. And this is some corridor rumors. It's not well. It's not really loved by his fellow engineers too. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's just give it some. Well, before we start on that, is there any outstanding or honourable mentions that you want to give any particular drivers?
I was impressed by Sainz. I mean, the guy is super consistent. Yeah, I was disappointed by Ricciardo, but he said that. I think he had problems with the car. And other than that, I mean, I was expecting a little bit more from Norris, to be fair with you, especially given how Sainz was driving, and I was expecting Lando to be a little bit more on the result. I think that he has a driving style which it would have done well with these shitty conditions. So yeah.
Well,
but
that brings me on to my dishonourable mention, which was Raikkonen this week.
Oh boy.
I would have thought he would have been all over this thing.
Yes.
But again, I think your point about setting the car up and gambling was Raikkonen's problem. I think he set the car up for dry, thinking, right, most people are going to go for medium. I'm just going to go all the way dry. And if it's dry, we're going to have a good race,
Yeah.
Just the same way that the red point of the Tracing Points, they set their car up for the wet, hoping, and they got their wish. So that was the thing, because Raikkonen was spinning all over the shop again, and I just thought, well, okay, what's going on? Okay, and then he slowed down hugely, presumably couldn't get his tyres switched on.
Yeah.
Bottas as well. Again, after that first spin, which he was unlucky with, let's face it, wrong place, wrong time. He couldn't get his car working, and that just goes to show you that anybody that drove off the circuit was in big problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No, I
yeah,
think that most of the drivers were not expecting the track never to dry up.
yeah, yeah,
They kept asking, about the times, about the failover time,
yep,
the moment where the times are good, so that you can switch to to slick tires, and everybody kept asking about that, and
hmm
it never came. And I think it was a radio from, I can't remember if it was Red Bull or Mercedes, that said, listen, this it's not going to happen,
yeah.
So, and I think a lot of them were caught by surprise by that,
Yeah, I
So
think that was Lewis actually saying,
yeah,
"No,
yeah,
it's yeah, we're not." Someone said to the pits, Lewis said, "Oh, so what's going on? Am I coming in? I think maybe intermediates again." And then they said, "Oh, we're going to hang on for slicks. We're hanging on for slicks." And Lewis went, "No, it's not going to go to slicks. It's just not going to happen."
yeah.
And thinking, and I thought at the time, well, that means likewise he'll come in for a new set of intermediates. And of course, that would have turned out to be disastrous for his race. So again, he then, although calling for intermediates, when they decided to call him in for intermediates, he said, "No, hang on, these are all right still."
No, but
And again,
I mean, it was.
how amazing is that? I mean, Lewis in the car calling exactly the right tire strategy. That's
I mean,
experience for you.
it was 58 laps. I was expecting, by the time it was the 40th lap, stuff like that,
Yeah.
that the track was getting a little bit more manageable. But it wasn't. And, the other funny thing is that usually you could see people, looking for the wet part, just to cool the tires off.
Mm.
But not everybody was doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it was really cold, and and the tires were actually, even if they become slick, they were actually fine. So it was really, really super weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Very disappointing in that respect because I think we were robbed of what would have been an incredible race
yeah.
between Verstappen and Hamilton. But there again, we had a great race anyway. The midfield were
Oh
fantastic,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that was amazing. Amazing number of mistakes. That's what got me. Like Magnussen and Grosjean were just in dire straits all fucking all race. Again, I think it comes down to the point you made, and now you said it. I could see it more and more, especially at the back of the field, which is those cars that were set up for a dry race had a disastrous race because they couldn't get the intermediates turned on.
Nope, nope.
And even if you did, like Kvyat and Gasly, which seemed to have a slightly better and softer setup,
Right.
if you then spun and made any mistakes, that you were lost again.
Yeah.
Right, so it was only the very best of the drivers that managed to get away with it, and that's why I think we had a 1-2-3 like we did: Hamilton,
Yeah.
Perez, Vettel. I think because they are still the very best drivers out there.
Yeah, the drivers which realized sooner than the others what predicament they were actually getting into.
Yes, yeah,
They were
that's a
the
better
ones.
way. Yeah.
And that's why I was, and to be totally fair with you, I was really surprised by Perez because, I mean, I'm starting to reevaluate the guy, with as long as performances go.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
this is, to be honest with you again, this is his speciality, is these conditions.
yeah,
If I
but you
remember,
see, so
go ahead.
no, so just finishing. So I wasn't surprised by Lewis. I was surprised by Perez a little bit. I wasn't surprised by Vettel. I was super surprised by Leclerc because he hasn't got that much of experience, but apparently he figured that out. And I was, I was surprised by Verstappen not doing that. Science, well, science is kind of experience. So there were some things which made the race even more interesting.
Yeah.
From that point of view, it was there was some. Valtteri Bottas, you would expect. Okay, that guy at least knows what the fuck he's doing, and apparently he doesn't. So
Yeah. I mean, again, I think he was suffering from bad calls and that early spin, which must have shut his tires down completely. So that first stint was terrible for him. And then he kept making mistakes after that, just as Stroll did, really. When Stroll's head went down, he really dropped off in performance. Whereas even when even when some of the others were making mistakes, they didn't let their head go down.
Yeah,
So
but Stroll doesn't have to worry too much. I mean, his dad has bought him the team, and
yeah, that's
is
fair enough.
and his dad also bought him, a teacher for next year. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and one of the best in out there. So
right, yeah,
that's going to be fantastic.
yeah.
Although I have a feeling Stroll's going to be whinging a lot during the season when Vettel just paces him every fucking Grand Prix.
There,
So
there
that'll be
was
fun to watch as well.
my wife asked me during the race. Well, if you had a lot of money, like a huge amount of money, would you buy an F1 team? And I said, well, listen, well, I mean, Stroll actually hasn't really got, what you would call, it's not exactly stupid money, that insane money, If I
Yeah.
had that kind of insane money, yeah, I would probably do that, for shit and giggles,
Well,
what the
no, I
fuck.
tell you, I think he's making money. Is Father Stroll,
Yeah.
because in the previous years, right? Like in the year before, I think the first Williams year,
Hmm.
just before, Stroll spent 80 million. Father Stroll spent 80 million to
Yeah.
fly young Stroll around the circuits of the world for test
Yes.
sessions, right? Eight
Yeah.
and hire a Williams, right, to do it in,
Yeah.
right? 80 million, right? So how much has this year cost him? Now he's actually bought the company.
Well, I don't.
Not 80 million, I'm guessing, right? I think he's probably putting a couple of quid in his pocket at the end of this year, or at least not spending 80 million. So
Well, that is something I don't know. I should look at the what do you call the
books,
price list for
yeah.
Mercedes. How much is an old car? So I don't know how much he actually spent.
Oh yeah, and of course he spent 400,000 just on blueprints apparently.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, fair enough. But
I, don't-
okay,
I,
so
I don't think he bought the blueprints. I think he
no,
bought the
no, no.
car directly. And when you buy a new car, in the glove box you have all the documents and the manual. I think that
Yeah,
he bought the car, and there must be a glove box where they had the blueprints, but it came part of the package. So
yeah, and of course, if he spent money, then of course that money would have gone to Mercedes. But on top of that, he then had another 400,000 fine, obviously.
yeah.
But again, good on him. I think
Oh yeah, fuck it. Yeah.
we need to get this part of the rules sorted out for
Right.
sure. A couple of other little things that we should just mention. We've gone over the hour, so
Mm.
driver salaries. Oh, terrible idea. What do you think? Yes or no? Driver salary caps.
I really don't know. I have no opinion on that.
Okay, okay. I think it's a terrible idea because
Mm.
we had this something similar to this before, where certain teams imposed a salary cap on their drivers, and they always struggled to get two good drivers, right? Because we had to have one shit driver in there giving us the money, and then the one good driver they really wanted to try and pay. And even then, when the teams got successful with their one good driver, of course they couldn't hang on to their one good driver, right? So there was none of this like Mercedes can afford to rehire Hamilton every other day, right? Every other year.
So
And just to finish up quickly, Hamilton's just signed a new deal, and it's the biggest ever Formula One deal, of course, right? So I mean, he's looking at ultra millions now, okay, because they're having to rush in a deal, right? Because there's caps next year, so they have to get him signed up this year for a multi-year deal,
right, right,
right? Which means they're going to
right.
have to pay him extra because now
Well,
it's a
listen.
joke.
I mean,
It's an absolute joke, okay?
the salary cap, it's weird right now because the thing is that um, F1 like it is now, I can see a salary cap because the car is so much more important than the driver. Don't get me. It's not overall important, but the car really can make a result. So the way that F1 is set up right now, I can see a salary cap. The funny thing is that the new management in F1 has been trying for years to go in the other direction, where the car, the performances are a little bit more balanced. So in that situation, the salary cap will not make too much sense.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they're talking about the salary cap now, if they want to go in a situation where actually the salary cap would be something which is not conceivable. So it's really it's a little bit schizophrenic from the FIA right now.
Yeah, and that's not the only schizophrenic thing they're
Oh
doing.
no, yeah.
But there we go. And again, after yesterday's race, salary cap. I mean, it was the best drivers that won that won the race and finished higher up, right? It was the consistent drivers that did that could actually, do something and earn their money, right? That was a day where the drivers earned their money, and what are you saying? So the best drivers on the grid, right, that get paid the most money, won the race, right, and were on the podium. Okay,
there is an easy way.
I don't get it.
There is an easy way to settle this discussion. What did Toto Wolff said about the salary cap?
I think he said it was a good idea or something.
So it's a shitty idea. That's the way. That's the way you settle things right now.
Yeah.
You just listen whatever the fuck the guy says, and you do the opposite. That's the best idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we found out exactly where Fabio stands on the salary caps.
Yeah.
So that's an easy way to
Thank you, Toto. Yeah, you made my mind. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so thank you so much, Fabio. Next race is Bahrain 1.
Bahrain 1. Yeah.
Two races at Bahrain, back to back. The second race is going to be the interesting one, but the first race at Bahrain, I think it'll be pretty much a parade session for Lewis Hamilton, of course. And he well deserves it because, as you may or may not know this, Fabio, Lewis, the 7 times world champion, Hamilton, is in fact 7 times world champion, which is a fantastic thing. He becomes the greatest of all time with most wins. He's the best driver. Actually, now I think about it, he is, of course, the best human that ever lived.